It is your nature to fear what you do not understand. You lock it away in cages to keep yourself safe. This way you don't have to learn its true nature, but not everything can be caged. Since the first of our people walked this land, we have always understood the great spirit of the forest and how to live with it. I've always understood the forest better than the civilization your people imposed on the land. In the forest, my people knew we had a future, the way things had always been. Our lands had always provided for us. Those days are long gone. The buffalo, once spread wild across the land, are gone. The mighty wolves now live in cages. Like my people, are only a shadow of what we once were. Slowly this land has been consumed by your cities of steel and cement, but there is still one that'll never be caged. A secret the mountains and the forests still keep. They are the master of the woods, the shadow guardians, the boss of the mountains. They are called by many names, by many tribes. The elders speak of them with respect, for they are the ultimate strength of the forest. These stories have been passed down from our ancestors for generations to have the wisdom to understand the forest like no civilized man could. My grandfather would speak of them as shadows. No one can catch a shadow or lock a shadow away. He would say it is the wise man that knows they must be left alone. This is simple knowledge that your people never learned. You cut down the forest, dam the rivers, and fence the plains like prisons. Sasquatch watches you as you cut down his home and wound the great spirit of this land. There is no room in your cities of glass and steel for them. It is easier to dismiss them only as stories, but they are real. Real as your shadows, and always watching.
Very cool.
Does Bigfoot exist, or have all the sightings been a hoax? Well, one man thinks he can put any doubts to rest. Todd Standing claims he's seen the legendary creature, and he believes the government needs to stand up and take notice.
Well, Bigfoot is coming to the border city. An independently produced mini-documentary about the legendary Sasquatch will air this Friday at the Vic Juba Theater. As Jessica Isaac explains, the man behind the initiative is working to protect the unidentified mysterious species.
And the petition to make this Canada's newest protected species.
The Bigfoot's a reality and not just some legend.
Although it's tough to make out, an Edmonton man believes this shadowy creature he captured on video is the mythical Bigfoot.
I was shocked. I still am shocked. I still try to be my own hardline skeptic. Could it really, like, is this...
Todd Standing says that this isn't the only Bigfoot video he has. He wouldn't show us his other footage, but says that you'll see everything in his documentary.
It's amazing. What I have to show people is just going to blow them away.
Todd Standing stands by his video proof that Bigfoot exists. It's in his 30-minute documentary, Sylvanic, derivative of a native word that means shadow guardian of the mountains.
Now, with what's happening and the way these animals are losing their habitat, my goal is to get protection for them. This is a better shot of it.
That's it right over there?
That's it.
Couldn't that have been a bear?
That's not a bear. Like, I was there. And that's an arm. Bears don't have arms.
Couldn't it have been like a very tall 400-pound man in a suit or something?
Yes, it could have been. It would be a brilliant way to keep people out of a certain place, right? Create this huge mythos, the shadow guardians of the mountain.
He's an independent documentary producer on a mission to prove and protect the existence of the Sasquatch.
Initially, I was a skeptic. I just said, I don't believe. And I always had a theory about Bigfoot. It was called a hoax mistaken identity theory. And, I just wanted to prove that theory. And 18 months ago, when I went on the 4th expedition into that region and I shot these 2 pieces of video, it wasn't even the videos at all that made me a believer. It was everything else that you see.
Standing has spent the last 2 years researching, developing a team, and heading out on several expeditions, ones where he claims to have recorded video footage like this of the Bigfoot.
When you realize this is you know, these are these huge animals crashing around the woods, especially at night, because that's when they're active, that's when they do things. It's terrifying.
For Edmonton, Millwoods, Beaumont.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to clarify that
Conservative MP Mike Lake presented a petition in the House of Commons that calls on Parliament to protect Bigfoot. The petition was the brainchild of Todd Standing, an avid Bigfoot hunter who claims to have proof the creature exists. But before he'll come forward with this evidence, he wants legislative protection guaranteeing the animal's safety.
If I made my knowledge to discover a Bigfoot domicile public, can you imagine what would happen?
So how did you start your quest?
I was always a skeptic, and I started getting into the Sylvanic thing, and before I knew it, I wasn't a skeptic anymore. I was a believer, and with what I had seen and what I'd shot on videos, it was just, the evidence was tremendous.
2 years ago, how did this all come together?
Well, it's on my website, Sylvanic.com. I had a friend of mine had an incident where his dog was killed in this region, and then I just started studying native folklore, working with the First Nations people, working with a brilliant biologist from the U.S. who's been studying this for 15 years.
Now, you used to totally disagree with Bigfoot.
Yeah, I was absolutely a skeptic. I had a theory that I wanted to prove called hoax mistaken identity, yeah.
And what was the moment that changed it all for you?
When I just saw things and experienced feats of athleticism that a man couldn't possibly do. We didn't want to lose our research site. The first people I ever went to was forestry officers. I tried to keep this as quiet as I could. I went to forestry officers. I said, look at all this evidence I have. Come and help me. And they said, we don't care how much evidence you have. You're on your own. This is a private thing. And I said, but look, don't take my word for it. Come with me, please.
Right.
Whatever it's going to take. And they said, absolutely not. We'll have nothing to do with this. There's no legal protection for the species. There's no legal recognition for the species in Canada. I shot a video one where we saw animals behind a tree. I didn't believe. I said wild man or missing link or something. I never believed Bigfoot at all until it was just even more than the video evidence. It's when you're out there in the woods and you see things happen at night, and these animals are nocturnal, and you see things that you know, and it's not a ghost. That was flesh and blood. No bear, cougar, no animal could have possibly done that. It's so much more than beyond the evidence, the video evidence that I have that convinced me and made me a wholehearted believer. This encounter is unfortunately somewhat unclear on the video, and I have to admit it totally caught us off guard. But at this point, I was certainly not thinking Bigfoot, and I continued after it to remain skeptical. To everyone there that actually witnessed this event, at the time, to us, it seemed very significant. But after spending countless hours attempting to enhance this footage, we came to realize that this video would have no value to anyone that wasn't actually there to witness it firsthand. What it did do was inspire the dedication in me to see through what others saw as only fantasy to its fullest scientific potential. Ultimately, the biggest breakthrough from Video 1 was it allowed me to meet my biologist from Great Falls, Montana, and begin my work with the First Nations people. It's beyond what can be shown on video that really makes you a believer. And even with the First Nations people, you know, me being a civilized person, that's something I've learned a lot about, the difference between civilized people and wilderness people. And I go to these people that are basically, they have a mastery of the wilderness. First Nations people, they've been here for 20,000 years, arguably. And you go to them and they believe this is real. This is something they've been taught since childhood, that these animals are a reality and how to coexist with them. And you go to them as a civilized person who lives on cement his whole life and go, yeah, no, you're wrong. I don't know anything about the woods, but you believe in this species? No, you're wrong. And it was really the First Nations people and their knowledge in me earning their respect and them earning mine that really also made me a believer. It's funny because people would think that it was Video 2 and Video 3 that we shot that would have made me a believer, but it absolutely was not that. It was everything else that I'd seen, things that are just even beyond verbal assertion that you experience when you're there. But once you understand how they survive and what's necessary for their survival, you begin to see how it's not just a possibility, it's a simple possibility, and we just have to realize it.